Old man, don't you dare come here. I do not need you. Just go die of old age alone. That was the text message I received from my son on the night of December 22nd. Cruel, sharp, like a bucket of ice water on the face of this old father who was busy packing gifts from the ranch to go to the city to visit his son. The neighbors who passed by and saw me stunned said, "Oh, let it go. Children grow up and become ungrateful. No way." But I did not believe it, not at all. The son who cried his eyes out when I cut my hand. The son who swore in front of his mother's grave that he would roast a lamb for me this year could not write those words filled with hate. Something was wrong. A smell of death was coming from the phone. And you cannot imagine. If that night I had been offended and gone to sleep, the only thing that would have welcomed me the next morning would be the cold corpse of my son chained in the barn of his own wife's family. Let me tell you what really happened before that fateful moment. Just a few hours before the phone screen lit up with those cruel words, I was the happiest man in this border country. Outside, the winter wind whistled through the old wooden cracks of the ranch house, but in the kitchen my heart was warm as if I were next to the fireplace. I was polishing my old cowhide boots, my war boots, which I only used for the most important occasions. On the table I had already arranged the simple gifts, but full of life. A bottle of aged bourbon that I had aged myself for 5 years, a jar of peach preserves made with my own hands, and a wool scarf that I clumsily knitted for my daughter-in-law, even though I knew she never liked these cheap things. 6 months ago, Matthew, my son, came to visit the house. He hugged me by the shoulders with eyes shining with pride and promised firmly, "Old Dad, this Christmas you have to come up to the city. I am going to roast you the best brisket in the world. We are going to put up the biggest tree in the neighborhood." That promise was what kept me alive for half a year. Matthew is a man of his word. He is worth gold. He has never failed me, not even in the smallest thing. And then the phone vibrated and that message appeared. I read it 10 times. "Old man, I do not need you." No, Matthew would never call me old like that, so dry and rude. He always called me Dad, Chief, or Old Man. But with that mocking and affectionate tone, and more importantly, Matthew hated writing messages without punctuation. He was very careful with every letter. This message was cold, mechanical, like it was written by a stranger trying to kick out a stray old dog. I called immediately. "Voicemail." The second time, voicemail. My heart started beating fast, not from anger, but from fear. I called Lauren, my daughter-in-law. It rang for a long time. Finally, she answered. "Hello, Dad, is that you?" Lauren's voice sounded, but it was not normal. She was trembling. She was out of breath, as if someone were pointing a knife at her back. "Lauren, where is Matthew? Why did he send me a message telling me not to come?" "I am getting ready to go to the terminal," I asked quickly, trying to keep calm. He is sleeping." "Oh, no. We are at the airport. We are going to Miami for an emergency, Dad. There's a lot of noise. Do not come, please." Matthew is very tired. He does not want to talk. She was lying. I knew she was lying. Behind her I could not hear the airport speakers, nor the hustle and bustle of tourists. Instead I heard music booming, the strong bass of some gangster rap, that music that glorifies criminals, and that Matthew hated and strictly forbade at home. And between the music I could hear the loud laughter of a man, rough and wild. "Hang up, tell that old man to get lost." You. She hung up on me abruptly. I stood petrified in the middle of the kitchen, squeezing the phone until my knuckles turned white. Hot blood rushed to my head. A normal father might shrug his shoulders. He would think that the children changed plans at the last minute, and he would put away the luggage with sadness. But I am not a normal father. I am a man who has lived all his life in this hard land. I smell danger in the air as clearly as the smell of gunpowder. "Going on vacation." "Tired," I murmured, staring at nothing. "No sun." "I know where you are, and I know you did not go on vacation." I grabbed my old suitcase. I took out some warm clothes. Instead, I went to the drawer. I took out my folding knife with an oak handle, my inseparable companion since my days as a lumberjack. The sharp blade shone under the yellowish light. I put it deep in the inside pocket of my thick jacket, right next to my chest. That night, I left my house, leaving behind the false peace. I was not going to have dinner on Christmas. I was going to look for my son because my instinct told me he was in mortal danger. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments below. I sat huddled in the last seat of the beat-up bus that covered the night route to the city. Outside the window, the night was black as ink, torn from time to time by the headlights that swept the dry trees at the edge of the road. The wind howled, bringing the cutting cold from the mountains, but the cold outside was nothing compared to the storm that roared inside me. They say that when one gets old, the senses become dull, the sight blurs, the hearing fails, the hands become slow. But there is something that never ages. On the contrary, it becomes sharper with the years. The instinct of a father. We call it a gut feeling. It is like when an old wolf smells the storm before the black clouds arrive, or like the horse that trembles before the earth moves. And tonight, that gut feeling was screaming in my head. Matthew is in danger. Run, William, run. I clutched the worn suitcase on my lap tightly. Inside, the bottle of bourbon clinked against the jar of preserves. I reached in to touch the inside pocket of my thick jacket. My fingers touched the cold and rough surface of the knife handle. It was the knife I had used for 40 years since I was a young logger, until I became a lonely old man on the ranch. The blade was worn, but it remained sharp as a razor, enough to cut rope peel fruit, and if necessary enough, to protect my family from wild beasts. I remembered the image of Matthew when he was 7 years old. That day there was a strong storm, and our cow got lost in the brush. I thought about leaving it, but Matthew cried stubbornly, insisting on going to look for it, because it was the cow he loved the most. Father and son walked in the rain and wind all night. When we found the cow trapped in a ravine, Matthew jumped, using his little hands, trying to lift it. The boy was covered in mud, shivering with cold, but his look had a strange determination. He was just like his mother, the noblest but bravest woman I have ever known. Dad, I am never going to abandon our family. Matthew said while we took the cow to the corral. A boy like that, a grown man, could not send a message running his dad off like a beggar. No way. It could not be. Hey, boss, why that worried face? Are you going to visit the family for the holidays with that funeral face? The bus driver looked at me through the rear-view mirror, asking loudly. He was Matthew's age and chewed gum noisily. I was startled, trying to force a crooked smile. Ah, yes, it is just that my son told me he had a surprise. I am nervous to know what it is, that is all. Surely it is good news. Now the kids in the city earn good money. Surely they will give you a car or a trip. He laughed out loud. I remained silent, looking out the window. A trip. Sure, the message said they were going to Miami. But why the secret? Why was my daughter-in-law's voice trembling like that, and the music, that damn music, kept haunting me? I closed my eyes, praying silently to God. Lord, please protect my boy. If he is okay, I offer you the rest of my life in penance. But if someone dares to touch a hair on his head, forgive me for what I am going to do. The bus plunged into the night, carrying an old father, and a fear that grew every second, becoming a heavy stone, crushing my chest. I arrived in the city when it was already getting dark on December the 23rd. The city shone with lights. Giant Christmas trees blinked in the squares. The church bells rang, announcing a season of peace. But all that only made me feel more lost and alone. I took an old taxi to go to the suburbs, where Matthew had bought a very decent 2-story house 3 years ago. It was the biggest pride of his life. He worked like a mule overtime day and night at the trucking company to have that home. We arrived, boss. The area is nice, said the taxi driver, slowing down. I looked outside. Yes, it was Matthew's neighborhood. The houses around were luxuriously decorated. The neighbor's house on the left was full of LED lights in the shape of reindeer. The widow's house on the right had a giant inflatable Santa Claus waving. But my son's house was different. It was completely dark, without blinking lights, without a wreath on the door. The cream-colored two-story house stood imposing cold and separated from the joy around it. The curtains on the first and second floor were tightly closed, as if its owners wanted to hide all the secrets inside. But what gave me chills was not the darkness, but what was parked in the yard. Matthew's front yard, where he usually parked his spotless silver sedan, was now invaded by 3 huge pickup trucks, pitch black with dark-tinted windows. Nothing could be seen inside. The bodywork was stained with red mud, that kind of mud that is only found on the dirt roads of the border, where smugglers move. They were parked brutally crushing the green grass that Matthew took care of every weekend. And then I heard it. When I got out of the taxi, I paid and stood in front of the iron gate. The music boomed from inside the house. It was not Silent Night. It was not Jingle Bells. They were shrill trumpets, accelerated bass, and the nasal voice of a gangster rap song. I crossed the border with the white packages, the gun on my belt and the bag full of cash. Whoever gets in my way gets led. The lyrics full of violence and boasting hit my ears like slaps. Matthew hated that music, he had told me. Dad, that music is poison. It celebrates evil. In my house, songs that praise criminals will never be played. And yet now his own house vibrated with that dirty sound. I stood rooted in front of the gate. The cold wind hit me in the face, but a cold sweat ran down the back of my neck. The restlessness from a while ago had become an absolute certainty. This was not a quick trip. This was an invasion. I got closer, trying to look through a tiny crack between the 2 curtains in the living room. The yellow light from inside filtered out. I squinted with my heart racing. The scene inside made my blood run cold and then boil with rage. In the living room, on the brown Italian leather sofa that Matthew took care of like gold, sat his in-laws, sprawled out. The father-in-law with a red face chugging my son's expensive whiskey bottle straight from the spout. The mother-in-law, a fat woman with a face full of makeup, was laughing out loud with a long cigarette in her hand, dropping the ash on the white wool rug. But the one who caught my attention the most was not them. It was an unknown guy sitting with his feet on the coffee table. He looked about 30. Shaved head with a gold chain on his thick neck like a dog chain. He was wearing a tank top showing a tattoo of a black scorpion that went up from his bicep to his neck. He was using Matthew's fruit knife to clean his fingernails while he laughed, saying something that made the whole political family celebrate. I recognized him. Although I had never seen him in person, I had seen his photo once when Matthew sighed and showed it to me. Cyclops. Although he had both eyes, the nickname referred to his defective soul. He was Lauren's brother, the one Matthew had mentioned. That guy is a disaster. He is involved with the mob. I forbade him from standing in this house. So what was he doing here? Why was the wife's family partying in my son's house when they were not there? And most importantly, where was Matthew? I took a step back, hiding in the shadow of the old oak tree in front of the gate. I needed to confirm. I needed to see my daughter-in-law. I breathed deeply, trying to calm my heart. That beat wildly. I adjusted my shirt collar, smoothed the edge of the jacket that hid the knife, and stepped out of the shadows. I rang the doorbell. Ding! Dong! The bell rang clearly, but seemed to be swallowed by the noise of the music inside. I rang again this time, leaving my finger pressed longer. Inside, the music went down abruptly. I heard hurried steps, whispers. "Who is it?" I said. We did not want visitors. The hoarse voice of the man resonated. "Let me see." "Surely it is the pizza." A woman's voice was heard. It was Lauren. The heavy wooden door opened slightly. Lauren appeared. She was wearing a thin silk nightgown with a sweater poorly put on top. Her face was heavily made up, but she could not hide how gaunt she was, and the deep dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me standing there carrying my bag of gifts from the ranch, The color drained from her face. She stood paralyzed like a statue, holding the edge of the door tightly. Her lips trembled, but no voice came out. William. She whispered so softly that the wind almost carried the word away. I looked straight into my daughter-in-law's eyes, looking for a little warmth, a little welcome, but there was nothing. In her eyes there was only pure terror. "Hello, daughter Lauren," I said with a grave voice, trying to sound calm. "I am here." They did not answer me. I got worried and grabbed the frame. I tried to take a step forward, but Lauren backed away quickly, blocking the way with her other hand on the door. "Dad, why did you come? I had already sent you a message." We are at the airport." "Oh no." "We canceled the flight, but Matthew is sleeping. He is very tired." The clumsy and messy lies came out of her mouth. Something about the airport. Something about sleeping. She did not even dare to look me in the eyes. "Lauren." I cut her off sharply with a cold look. "You say Matthew is sleeping? Then what is that music, and whose trucks are those outside? Why are your parents and your brother in the house if your husband is sick?" Lauren jumped. She looked back with fear. Just at that moment, Cyclops came out into the hallway. He had a beer in his hand, his face red from alcohol. He looked me up and down with contempt, and he smiled mockingly, showing teeth stained with smoke. "Who is it, sister? Ah, the old rancher." He advanced and stood imposingly, right behind Lauren, blowing all the stench of alcohol in my face. "Hey, old man, you have the wrong house. Nobody buys vegetables here. Get out." I clenched my fist. The rage ignited in my chest like fire. "I came to see my son. Move. Your son does not want to see you. He is sick of your smell of cow manure." Cyclops laughed and then turned to yell at Lauren. "What are you doing?" "Close the door. Kick him out, or I will not be responsible." Lauren trembled. I clearly saw on her wrist where the sweater sleeve had gone up a little, some bruises, marks of fingers that had squeezed hard. "Dad, go, please," said Lauren with her eyes filling with tears. She looked at me pleadingly. "Please go. Matthew is fine. Tomorrow I will tell him to call you. Go." "Lauren." "Where is my son?" I roared, trying to push the door to enter. "But forgive me, Dad." Bam! The door closed violently in my face. The sound of the bolt was heard hurriedly. I stood there alone in the middle of the freezing night. Inside, Cyclops's laughter rang out again, accompanied by the gangster rap at full volume, as if to drown out my blows on the door and mock the helplessness of an old man. Do they think a wooden door is going to stop me? Do they think I'm going back to the terminal, crying? They are very wrong. Fools. I took a few steps back. I looked towards the second-floor window. Matthew and his wife's bedroom, all dark with no signs of life. I bent down, pretending to pick up my suitcase, and walked towards the gate, as if I had given up. I walked until I was lost behind the oak trees, waiting until I was sure no one was looking out the window. Then I threw the heavy suitcase into the bushes. I only kept the knife in my pocket. I pulled up my hood to cover my head, and sticking to the shadow of the stone wall, I went around the back of the house. If they do not open for me the easy way, I will enter the hard way, and I am not going to ring the bell again. The back garden of Matthew's house used to be the most peaceful place in the world. I remember that every time I came, we pruned the rose bushes together. We took care of the green grass. Matthew loved this garden. He said it was the only place where he felt he could breathe in the noisy city. But tonight, that garden looked like a desolate battlefield. I jumped over the low wooden fence in the corner. My knees hurt from the arthritis of old age, but I held on without making noise. The waning moon faintly illuminated the scene in front of me, and my soul was crushed. Matthew's precious rose bushes had been trampled without mercy. The green grass was now full of deep tire tracks. The earth plowed, everything turned into a mud pit. Clearly those trucks had entered all the way here, not to see the landscape, but to load something very heavy. I held my breath, moving softly like an old cat among the bushes. The night wind here blew stronger, bringing a smell of dampness, a strong smell of gasoline, and a smell of rot. I stuck to the wall of the house, advancing towards the old shed in the corner of the garden. That shed Matthew built just to store the mower and various tools. It was made of pine wood, simple and a bit crooked. Matthew joked, "This shack will fall with a kick, Dad." But as I got closer, I noticed a strange change. The rotten wooden door of the shed was now reinforced with 2 iron bars across it, and on the loose latch from before there now hung a new padlock, big as a fist, shining under the moon. Why lock a small room that holds shovels and picks with such an expensive padlock? My gut feelings screamed at me louder than ever. My trembling hands touched the cold wood. I put my ear to the crack between the pine boards. Total silence inside. Could I be wrong? I asked myself, sweating profusely, even though it was cold. Could it be that they are hiding contraband here? I was going to withdraw, to look for another way to enter the main house. But just then something sounded. Clink, clink. It was metal clashing. The sound of chains. It came from inside. It sounded heavy and tired. I froze. A moan followed, not from a wounded animal. It was the moan of a person, a suppressed, weak, broken moan, as if it came from the chest of someone dying without strength. Water. The whisper came out. So quiet that if I did not have my ear pressed, I would have thought it was the wind. But I recognized that voice. Although it was hoarse, distorted by pain, I recognized it. It was the voice that had called me Dad for 30 years. "Matthew," I whispered with a broken voice, lips pressed to the wood. "Matthew, is that you, son?" The moan inside stopped. The silence lasted 3 seconds. But for me, it was a century. Then a sound responded, a soft knock on the wood. Knock, knock, and then a sob. The cry of a child finding his mother. The cry of despair finding hope. Dad, Daddy. The world came crashing down on me. My son. He did not go to Miami. He was not sleeping in a warm bed. He was here in this filthy and freezing shed a few yards from his own house, where the invaders ate and drank at their leisure. Tears welled up in my hot old eyes, but immediately dried up, leaving room for something more terrifying. Fury. I stepped back, looking at the huge padlock that imprisoned my son. I touched my pocket, grabbing the oak handle. Tonight, there will be no silent night. Tonight, the devil is going to have to face a father. I stood in front of the shed door, trembling, not from the cold that chilled my bones, but from the broken sound coming from inside. My son's voice, the cry for help of a trapped animal. I had to get in? Now. But that shiny padlock looked at me mockingly like a devil's eye. I touched the knife in my pocket. No. This is for cutting rope or self-defense. It cannot open a reinforced steel padlock. I looked around in the gloom of the moon. In this corner of the garden, Matthew always left a mess. There it was. Under the thick bougainvillea, I saw a rusty iron bar, maybe part of an old broken clothesline. It measured 1/2 a yard with a flat tip. I grabbed it, feeling the cold of the metal in my calloused hand. I went back to the door. I did not try to break the padlock. It was too hard. Instead, I aimed at the latch. Matthew made this shed with cheap wood, and after several rains, it was already half rotten. I put the tip of the bar between the metal latch and the wooden door. I took a deep breath, concentrating all the strength of a man who carried wood all his life in his right arm. "Open up, or I will tear you to pieces, you bitch!" I hissed through my teeth. Crack! The wood snapped dryly. The latch popped off, taking a piece of rotten wood with it. The door opened, slightly groaning on the hinges without oil. I held my breath. Did the noise alert those in the house? I looked towards the main house. The gangster rap kept booming. The laughter continued. Maybe God used those dirty sounds to cover me. I slipped inside the shed and closed the door behind me. The darkness inside was thick, heavy. But what hit me first was not the darkness, but the smell. A horrible mixture that turned my stomach. Smell of rotten wood. Strong smell of old urine, and hidden somewhere there, the metallic smell of dried blood and cheap antiseptic. Trembling, I took out my phone. I turned on the flashlight. The cold white light swept the small, messy room. torn fertilizer sacks, old mowers lying around, and then the light stopped in the corner where the main post of the shed was. My heart stopped. Matthew, my tall, strong son, the pride of our last name, was lying there curled up on the cold and dirty floor. He was only wearing torn shorts, his skin purple from the cold. He had his hands tied behind his back to the post with rough rope. But the worst was his right leg, a thick iron chain. The kind for vicious dogs squeezed his right ankle, the other end hooked to an eye bolt, nailed into the concrete. The ankle was swollen to double its size, black and purple. The shin was twisted at a grotesque, unnatural angle. They had broken his leg, and they had left him like that without a splint, without a bandage, only with dried blood stuck to his skin. "Matthew!" My broken voice escaped me. That curled-up figure jumped. He lifted his head, squinting his eyes at the light. His face was gaunt, his beard grown, one eye swollen that he could not open, his lips cracked white. When he recognized me, the good eye opened huge, full of terror instead of joy. "Dad," he whispered with a raspy voice like wind in a chimney. "Turn it off. Turn off the light. Dad, run." I did not listen to him. I threw myself to his side, falling on my knees on the cold earth. I hugged his face full of bruises, my hot tears falling on his cheeks. My God, my son, what did they do to you? My son, who did this to you? Matthew trembled in my arms, not from cold, but from fear. He tried to push me with his little strength. "You cannot be here." "Cyclops. He has a gun. He is going to kill you." "Go, Dad. I am not going anywhere," I said firmly, taking off my thick jacket to cover him. "I am here. Nobody is going to kill anyone. I am going to get you out of this hell." I touched his broken leg. Matthew let out a moan of pain, shrinking back. Rage exploded in me, burning all fear. I looked at the chain, then at my son's destroyed face. This is not domestic violence. This is torture. This is the work of demons. And tonight, that demon is going to pay. "Dad, forgive me," Matthew cried, the tears mixing with the dirt on his face. He rested his head on my shoulder, weak as a little child. I promised to roast you meat, and look at me lying like a dog. Do not talk any more, son." I stroked his head, feeling the bumps on his skull. "Tell me why. Why did your wife's family do this? Where is Lauren? Does she know?" At the mention of Lauren, Matthew went rigid. A different pain, deeper than the physical, appeared in his eyes. "Lauren," he whispered bitterly. "She knows. She stood watching Dad. She saw how they beat me." I froze. Lauren, the daughter-in-law, who always called me Daddy Father-in-law, the girl I thought was good. Matthew breathed with difficulty and began to count every word like a stab in my heart. "Last week I went down to the garage to check the trucks. You know my trucking company. Lately there were night trips. It seemed strange to see Cyclops lurking. He does not work for me." Matthew swallowed saliva. His throat was dry. Quickly I opened my water bottle, giving him a drink, little by little. I went into the back warehouse without them seeing me. I saw my father-in-law, Frank and Cyclops, taking the spare tires off the trucks. Inside, it was full of white packages. "Dad, crystal pounds and pounds. Holy Virgin," I whispered, crossing myself. I yelled at them. I told them I was going to call the police. I was going to take out my cell phone. Matthew's voice broke, but I did not expect Frank, my father-in-law, to hit me with a wrench from behind. I passed out. I gritted my teeth, closing my fist. The father-in-law beating the son-in-law to protect the drugs. This world is crazy. When I woke up, I was already here tied up. Cyclops was in front with a baseball bat. Matthew looked at his leg, shuddering. He was laughing. He told me, "Do you like calling the police? I'm going to teach you to walk carefully." And then he shattered my leg. "Dad, it hurts a lot." I passed out and woke up again from the pain. "Damn them sons of bitches," I cursed, crying with rage. "They took my cell phone. They forced me to unlock it. Cyclops was the one who sent you the message. He said if I did not give him the password, he would kill Lauren. He threatened to kill you." Matthew looked at me with swollen eyes. "I was very scared, Dad. Scared that they would do something to you, that is why I gave them the code. And Lauren, what did she do? He cried. She begged her dad. But he slapped her. He told her, do you want to live well, or do you want the whole family to go to jail? And just like that, she stayed silent. She chose her family. Dad, she left me lying here. I felt a chill down my spine. Betrayal? That poison kills faster than bullets. They did not just break my son's leg, they broke his trust and his heart. What do they want from you? Why don't they just kill you? I asked, although I feared the answer. Matthew looked at me with darkness. If they kill me, the police investigate. The company is in my name. They need the company to launder money, to move the cargo. They need me alive, but alive like a zombie. He pointed to the dark corner of the shed, where there was a small wooden table. Look, Dad, look what they are going to do to me tonight. I shined the light over there, and what I saw froze my blood. On the rotten table next to an empty bottle was a shiny metal tray. Inside was a small bag with white powder, a metal spoon burned underneath, a lighter, and a new medical syringe in its packaging. Kit to shoot up drugs. I stared at those things dizzy. I am from the ranch. I do not know much about these devil things, but I understand what they are for. They think. I stuttered. They are going to inject me, Dad said Matthew desperately. Cyclops said that since it is Christmas Eve, he is going to give me a little gift. He wants to make me an addict. He wants to turn me into an animal that begs for drugs at his feet. Matthew's tears came out again. Dad, if I become an addict, my word before the law is worth 0. The police will see me as a paranoid junkie accusing his decent political family. They are going to control me with the drugs. I am going to lose everything. The company, my honor, my life. I looked at my son, an engineer, a healthy, intelligent man on the verge of being turned into a slave of that poison. The plan was not only cruel, it was perfect in a terrifying way. Killing someone requires hiding the body, but killing someone's soul allows them to keep using the body to make money. No, I said, lowering my voice cold and hard. Cold and... I stood up, turning to see my son. There will be no injection. Nobody is going to turn you into an addict. You do not understand. Cyclops is coming. He said he would finish the bottle and come to take care of me. You have to go now. Click! A noise at the shed door cut Matthew off. We both jumped. The latch outside sounded. Heavy steps on the dry grass, and the drunken humming of someone. Merry Christmas to my dear brother-in-law. It was Cyclops' voice. He was coming. I looked at Matthew's chain. There was no time to break it. I looked for a weapon, the rusty bar, ready, and the knife in my pocket. Dad. Hide, whispered Matthew in panic, behind those sacks. Quick! I looked at my son, and then at the vibrating door. I knew I could not hide. If I hid, he would inject Matthew in front of my eyes. No damn way I was not going to allow that. I turned off the flashlight. I put it away. I stepped back, sticking to the darkness just behind the door, right hand gripping the bar, left hand on the knife. My heart beat so hard I feared he would hear it. I am a 70-year-old man with arthritis-tired eyes. He is a bull of 30, brutal and armed. Unfair fight. But I have 2 things he does not. Surprise and the instinct of an old wolf cornered defending his cub. The door burst open. The moon entered, drawing the shadow of a strong man on the floor. The smell of alcohol entered at once. The bloody confrontation began. Cyclops entered the shed bottle, half drunk, in the right hand, black pistol in the left. He did not turn on the light, maybe out of confidence, or because he liked to enjoy the fear of his victim in the dark. He stumbled crooked drunk steps. Let's see, brother-in-law, he slurred his words mockingly. Here I bring you your medicine. Ready to fly to heaven. He advanced towards Matthew. My son shrank back, looking at the gun. No, please, Rick. Matthew begged, buying time. Do not call me Rick, call me boss. He laughed, raising the bottle for one more drink. At that moment when he threw his head back, leaving his throat exposed, and lowering his guard, I came out of the shadow behind the door. I did not scream. Cunning old men do not scream when they attack. I put all my weight and my hate into the rusty bar. Whack! The bar hit dryly on his armed wrist. A dry crack sounded. He screamed in pain. The gun flew from his hand, sliding across the concrete into the darkness. What the hell? He turned around with eyes popping out in surprise. He saw me. An old man with white hair, eyes of fire, bar in hand. I did not give him time. I threw the second blow at his knee. But Cyclops, although drunk, knew how to fight in the street. He stepped back by reflex. The bar only grazed his thigh. He roared, throwing the bottle at my face. I ducked. The bottle smashed on the post glass flying. Taking advantage of the fact that I moved, he charged at me like a bull. The shove sent me against the sacks. My chest hurt as if I had been hit by a sledgehammer. I dropped the bar. Old piece of shit, I'm gonna kill you. Cyclops howled, throwing a punch at my face. He hit me in the cheekbone. I saw stars, taste of blood in my mouth. He threw himself on top of me, hands to my neck, fat and rough fingers squeezing my throat. I could not breathe. My vision was darkening. Dad, no, screamed Matthew, pulling the chain uselessly. I saw Cyclops's deformed face glued to mine. He was laughing devil's smile. He thought he had already won. He thought youth crushed old age. But he forgot something. I am a rancher. I have dealt with bulls and logs all my life, and I have an ace up my sleeve. My right hand searched in the pocket. My fingers touched the oak handle. Click. The knife opened. I did not stab wildly. I remembered how I killed chickens, how I bled wild boars. I needed a weak point. With my last strength, I plunged the knife into his thigh, right in the groin where the artery passes. Slash Cyclops let out a scream of terror that broke the night. He let go of my neck, grabbing his leg. Blood started spurting out, hot, wetting me all over. I pushed him. I rolled to the side, coughing, looking for air. He tried to get up, pale eyes bulging. He was looking for the gun, the heater. Where is it? He moaned. I also saw the gun. It was a yard from Matthew. Matthew, the gun, I yelled. Matthew, despite the pain, reached out, grabbing the weapon with his tied hands. He aimed at Cyclops, trembling. Freeze, freeze, you bastard, yelled Matthew. Cyclops froze. He saw the black barrel, then his bleeding wound. The bravery left him, leaving pure cowardly fear. No, do not shoot. Brother-in-law, it was a joke, he stuttered, raising his hands. I got up with difficulty. I grabbed the bar. I approached and gave him a strong blow to the nape of the neck. Bam! Cyclops rolled his eyes back and fell like a sack of potatoes, unconscious. I stood there panting. Everything hurt, covered in someone else's blood, but I did not feel disgust. I felt pleasure. It is done, I told Matthew. Let's go, son. There was no time to rest. Cyclops's scream surely alerted those in the house. The gangster rap stopped. I heard screams from the house. What happened? Rick Frank's voice boomed. Shit, I cursed. I checked Cyclops's pockets. Keys, thank God. A keychain with the Ford logo. It was for one of the trucks. I went back to Matthew. The problem was the chain. I did not have the key to the padlock. Dad, how do I go? I am chained. Matthew looked at his ankle desperately. I looked at the eye bolt in the concrete. It was firm. But the chain held onto the eye bolt with a U, shackle with a screw. Pass me the wrench from over there, I pointed. Matthew crawled for the rusty wrench. I turned the nut. It was hard from the rust. Quick, Dad. They are coming. I urged Matthew, looking at the door. I gritted my teeth, using all my strength. I skinned my hand, bleeding. Ugh! The nut turned a little. I continued. Finally it loosened. I removed the shackle. The chain came loose from the floor, but remained on Matthew's ankle. Oh, well, we go like this. Let's go. I helped Matthew stand up. He moaned when the broken leg touched the ground. Lean on me. Hop. Hold on, I ordered. We left the shed stumbling like drunks. Coming out to the patio, a powerful light from the back porch blinded us. "Freeze right there," shouted Frank. He was at the back door with a double-barreled shotgun. Beside him, the mother-in-law and Lauren covering her mouth. "Kill him, old man." "He killed my brother," shrieked the mother-in-law. "Dad." "No," screamed Lauren weakly. Bang! The shot hit the dirt at my feet, splashing mud. The old man was shooting to kill. He was willing to kill his son-in-law to shut him up. "Run!" I yelled, pulling Matthew towards the side fence. Shortcut to the front. We rolled through the bushes, torn clothes. Another shot, breaking branches above us. We reached the front. The 3 trucks were still there. I pressed the button on the key. The middle one blinked. "Get in fast!" I pushed Matthew into the passenger seat, throwing his broken leg without delicacy because there was no time. I jumped to the steering wheel, closing the door violently. Frank had already come around, aiming at the windshield. "Get out! I will blow your heads off!" He screamed red as a fighting rooster. I looked him in the eyes through the glass. I put the key in. Turned. The V8 engine roared like a beast. "Let's see if your shotgun is faster than my truck," I murmured. I put it in gear. I stepped on it. The truck jumped straight towards him. The old man jumped scared to the side, falling to the ground. The shotgun flew. The truck rammed the iron gate. Sound of crashing metal. Crash. Tremendous. The gate flew into the street. I swerved to the left, tires screeching on the cold asphalt. We launched ourselves into the darkness, leaving behind the house of hell, the screams, and the betrayal. I looked at Matthew. He was panting, pale, sweating. Cold, holding his broken leg with the hanging chain. "Did we make it, Dad?" No one was following us. Maybe they were busy with Cyclops bleeding out. "Not yet, son," I said, eyes glued to the dark road. "The war is just beginning. But tonight, we won." I squeezed my son's cold hand, the calloused hand of the father and the trembling hand of the son. The black Ford F-150 that I stole ran like a possessed beast down the deserted highway. The V8 engine roared, devouring every yard of cold asphalt under the headlights that cut the night. I did not dare to slow down, not even a little. In the rearview mirror, the darkness seemed to want to jump to swallow us both. I expected to see pursuit lights, sirens, or hear gunshots. But behind, there was only a tomb, like silence. In the passenger seat, Matthew was fading. His broken leg was up on the dashboard, the iron chain still tight around the swollen and purple ankle vibrating with every bump of the truck. The blood from the open wounds was already starting to dry, sticking to the expensive leather upholstery. "My son Matthew, do not sleep." "Talk to me," I shouted, clinging to the steering wheel with my right hand and patting his cheek with my left. Matthew half opened his eyes, his gaze lost, gone from the pain and shock. "Dad, I am cold. I am very sleepy." "Do not sleep, damn it. If you sleep, you die," I yelled at him with tears on the edge. I knew the symptoms. Traumatic shock. He was losing blood, and the pain exceeded what was humanly bearable. If he passed out now, his heart could stop. I put the heater to the maximum, but the cold coming from his body seemed like nothing warmed it. "Listen to me," I told him, trying to keep my voice calm. "Do you remember when you were little, that time you climbed the guava tree and broke your arm? You cried all day, but the next day you already wanted to climb again. You are the most stubborn kid on the ranch. Hold on." "Son." Matthew smiled weakly, a crooked smile on his beaten face. "That time you spanked me because I tore my new shirt." "Yes, yes. This time I am not going to hit you. I'm going to buy you 10 new shirts. Just open your eyes and look at me." I looked at the clock on the dashboard. 2 a.m. We had already traveled about 20 miles away from that devil's den. I needed a hospital, but it could not be the big hospital downtown, where there are cameras everywhere and his political family could find us easily. I vaguely remembered there was a small clinic on the outskirts of the town of Oak Creek, about 6 miles further. It was the only place I could think of. "We are almost there, son. You are going to see the doctor." I comforted him. But inside anguish burned me. I did not know if I was putting my son in another trap. In this borderland, the line between the good guys and the bad guys is thin as paper. Police, doctors, judges. Anyone can be their people if the price is right. But seeing Matthew dying, I knew I had no other choice. I swerved. The truck entered the dirt road that leads to Oak Creek, raising a cloud of red dust. The Oak Creek Clinic was a one-story building, old, with peeling yellow paint, lost among eucalyptus trees. The white and blue neon emergency light was the only welcome. I parked abruptly in front of the door. I did not even turn off the engine. I jumped, ran to the passenger side, opened the door, and carried Matthew. "Hang on, son, just a little bit more." I carried him in. A nurse on duty, who was dozing behind the counter, woke up with a jump. When she saw us, an old man with torn clothes full of blood, and a young man beaten with a hanging chain, she screamed, terrified. My God! What happened here? Emergency. My son had an accident. Help him, please, I shouted, laying Matthew on the nearest stretcher. A doctor on duty, middle-aged with Coke bottle glasses, ran out. He looked at the wound on Matthew's leg, then the chain, and his look changed from concern to suspicion. "This is not a traffic accident," he said coldly. "Touching the fracture, these are blows with a blunt object. And this chain. Who are you? What did you do to him? I am his father. I just rescued him from some kidnappers." "Can you heal his leg before interrogating me?" I yelled at him. I ran out of patience. The doctor stared at me for a moment. Then he nodded to the nurse. "To the treatment room. Morphine for the pain now. Call the police." "Do not call the local police." I stopped the nurse's hand. "Call the feds, the federal police." The doctor took my hand away. "It is protocol, sir. We have to report any suspicious injury." They took Matthew inside. They left me in the waiting room. I let myself fall into a cold plastic chair, holding my head, with Cyclops's dry blood still under my nails. I took out my cell phone to call David, but the battery was dead after a long night of flashlight and GPS. "Damn it to hell," I cursed, hitting the cell phone against the chair. Not even 20 minutes passed when sirens were heard outside. Not ambulance, patrol car. 2 municipal police patrol cars braked at the entrance. 4 policemen got out, hands on their holsters. The one in front was a fat guy with a bushy mustache, squinting eyes scanning everything. I stood up. Instinct told me something was wrong. They arrived very fast. Too fast for how slow the police around here are. The commander entered. He did not ask the doctor. He came straight to me. "Are you William?" he asked with a hoarse voice. "Yes. I want to report a crime." My son was. "Shut your mouth," he cut me off rudely. "You are under arrest for kidnapping, disturbing the peace, and intentional injuries." What I was stunned. "Are you crazy? I am the victim." My son was broken by his wife's family. They had him chained up. The policeman smiled mockingly, getting closer to me. He whispered in my ear, only for me to hear. "The Santillane family already called to notify us." "Old man, you kicked the wrong hornet's nest." Cyclops is my drinking buddy. My blood ran cold. It turns out the doctor's protocol had put me straight into the wolf's mouth, or worse. This whole town was on the narco payroll. "Cuff him," he ordered his subordinates. 2 young policemen jumped on me. I am not a criminal, but I am not a sheep to be taken to the slaughterhouse. At that moment, the survival instinct came out. I grabbed the plastic chair, smashed it on the nearest policeman, and ran towards the emergency room where Matthew was. "Matthew, barricade the door," I yelled. I got into the emergency room. I slammed the door and slid the bolt just before the commander put his hand in. "Open the door, you crazy old man." The blows rumbled, followed by curses. In the room, Matthew was on the bed, half drugged by the morphine, but the noise woke him up. The nurse and the doctor backed away, scared, to the corner. "What the hell are you doing?" yelled the doctor. "Shut up and get back if you want to live." I took out the knife, not pointing at them, but at the door. I am not going to hurt anyone, but I am not going to let those pigs take my son. I pushed the heavy medicine cabinet to block the entrance. The blows outside indicated they were trying to break down the door. The wood vibrated, pieces of plaster falling. Dad Matthew tried to sit up. "What is happening?" The police. They are Cyclops' people, I said, fast sweating buckets. They are coming to take us so your wife's family can finish us off. I looked at the room. No exit. Windows with bars. We were trapped in a rat trap. I needed backup, but my cell phone was dead. I turned to the trembling nurse. Miss, lend me your cell phone, please. I swear on my honor as a father, I'm not a criminal. They want to kill my son. Maybe the desperation and truth in my eyes touched her, or maybe she was afraid of the knife. Trembling, she took the cell phone out of her scrubs and gave it to me. I grabbed it. My trembling fingers dialed the number I knew by heart, but never thought I would use like this. David's number. David was my student at the self-defense school years ago, a rebellious orphan that I straightened out. Now he is a commander of the Federal Special Ops Anti-Drug Task Force in the capital. It rang. 1, 2. Bam! The door started to crack. The policeman outside was hitting it with the butt of the weapon. Hello? A deep voice with authority answered. David, it is me. Master William, I yelled at the phone. Master, what is wrong? You sound David. Listen well. I am at the Oak Creek Clinic. The local police have me surrounded. My son Matthew, his wife's family, who are narcos, broke his leg. The police here are bought. If you do not come, we will see each other in the next world. Son. Silence a second, and then David's voice became hard. Professional. Barricade yourself there, master. Do not open. Do not hand anyone over. I am going to send the nearest rapid reaction team. 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes. I do not know if this door will hold that long, son. Use everything you have. Do not die, master. I am coming. He hung up. I threw the phone to the nurse. 30 minutes. For someone waiting for death, 30 minutes is like 30 years. The blows stopped for a moment. Surely they were looking for something stronger to knock down the door, or planning how to enter. I went back to the bed. Matthew was a little more awake from the medicine. He looked at me no longer with the fear of the barn, now with determination. Dad, he signaled me they are not going to leave us alone. If they enter, our word is worth nothing against their power. I know. David is on his way, but we need evidence to put those wretches in jail, Matthew. Matthew pointed to his left foot, the healthy one that still had the dirty sneaker on. Take off my shoe. The left one. I frowned, but obeyed. I untied the laces, took out the sneaker full of mud. Lift the insole, he told me. I put my fingers in. I lifted the insole, and there in a small hollow, dug in the heel, was something black and tiny. A memory card SD. I grabbed it, looking at it under the neon light, a piece of plastic that could mean life or death. What is this, son? The body cam, said Matthew, panting. That day when I discovered them in the warehouse, I managed to take the card out of the camera I had on my vest. I hid it in my shoe just before my father-in-law knocked me out. I looked at my son with respect, on the verge of death, and he kept a cool head. What is on here? Everything, Dad. Cyclops and his dad packing drugs, talking about laundering money with my company. And when Frank attacks me with the wrench, Matthew squeezed my hand. This is our weapon. Without this, we are victims. With this, we are the hunters. I squeezed the card in my hand. Here it was. This would save us and send those demons to hell. Doctor, I turned to the cowering doctor. Do you have a computer? Laptop, tablet? Anything to read this? The doctor shook his head. No. Here there are only heart monitors. Shit. Outside the megaphone sounded, breaking the tension. William, this is the police speaking. You have 3 minutes to open up and surrender. If not, we come in with gas and lead. You are resisting authority. They were running out of patience. They knew that if this dragged on, their show would collapse. They wanted to resolve it fast. Kill us, or lock us up before dawn. I looked at the card, then the vibrating door. Of David's 30 minutes, only 10 had passed. I needed another weapon. A weapon they were more afraid of than bullets. Miss, I looked at the young nurse. Does your cell phone get social media? Facebook? Twitter? She nodded quickly. Yes, yes. The 4G is slow, but it works. Open it. Record me. Stream live. Right now. She hesitated. She looked at the door, then at me. Maybe her ethics or pity for seeing us like this won over the fear. She turned on the camera and pointed at me. "It is live now," she said, trembling. I took a deep breath. I fixed my white hair. I wiped the blood off my face. I did not want to look like a madman. I wanted to look like a father. I looked straight at the lens with eyes sparking. "Hello, everyone. My name is William. I am a father, and behind me is my son, Matthew." I stepped aside so the camera could see Matthew on the bed, with his destroyed and purple leg and the mark of the chain on his ankle. That image was crueler and more real than any speech. "Look at this," I yelled with a broken voice. "Look at what his wife's family did to him. They broke his leg. They chained him like a dog in a barn on Christmas Eve just because he discovered they trafficked drugs." I held up the SD card in front of the camera. "And here is the proof. Here are the crimes of the Santalans and Cyclops. But do you know what the police are out there? The Oak Creek commander threatens to kill us instead of arresting the narcos." Outside, the blows became violent. "Break down the door. Fast." "What the hell is he doing?" Broken glass. A tear gas grenade entered through the small window, rolling on the floor, releasing spicy white smoke. Cough, cough. I coughed. My eyes burned, but I did not drop the phone. "Share this video, please, if we die today." It was the Oak Creek police and the Santalan cartel. Do not let this go unpunished. I am William. I just want to save my son. The smoke filled the room. Matthew coughed hard, covering his mouth. "Cut it! Upload it now!" I yelled at the nurse. She hit finish and publish as soon as she touched the screen. Bam! The emergency door fell. The cabinet flew away. 4 policemen with gas masks, batons, and tasers entered through the smoke. I stood in front of Matthew with the rusty bar in my hand. "Do not dare touch my son," I roared like a cornered old lion. A baton blow hit me in the shoulder and I fell. An electric shock made me convulse. But as I fell to the cold floor with my vision blurred by the gas, I saw the nurse's cell phone screen light up. A small sign said, "Published successfully," and I smiled. The world already knew. They could no longer win this war in the dark. I was lying on the freezing floor, seeing blurry from the gas and the pain of the taser. The Oak Creek commander was standing over me, his huge shadow, falling like a tombstone. He raised the baton, his face red behind the mask, ready to deliver the final blow to this old father. "I told you, old man, here I am, the law," he grunted. I closed my eyes, trying to reach Matthew's bed. "Forgive me, son. I did what I could." Boom! A strong explosion, but not from a bullet or a baton. It was the main door of the clinic, flying into pieces. Then military steps, metal clashing, and hard voices, thundering like lightning, silencing the chaos of the room. "Federal police, drop your weapons. On the ground. Now." The commander froze the baton in the air. He turned, and through the white smoke, I saw the most glorious scene of my life. A commando armed to the teeth, black uniforms with gold letters. Federal police entered like a flood. Automatic rifles pointing at the corrupt cops. Red lasers dancing on their chests. In front was a tall man standing firm, pistol in hand but with a strange calm. He walked through the gas without flinching gaze fixed on the commander. "David, my student," I say at once. David's voice, cold, cut the silence. "Drop your weapons or I treat you as accomplices of the narco and open fire." The commander trembled. He looked at his little gun, then the arsenal of the feds. Clack. The baton fell to the ground. He raised his hands. His knees failed him and he fell. "Do not shoot." "I just did my duty," he stuttered. "Your duty is to protect people, not look after murderers," said David, and signaled his men. "Cuff them all. Take their badges and weapons. Call forensics now." The locals were thrown to the floor, arms behind. The sound of handcuffs, click, click, sounded like music to my ears. David ran to lift me up. He took off his mask, worried. "Master, are you okay?" I arrived late. I coughed, pulling in clean air, crying from the gas. I squeezed David's strong arm, smiling crookedly. "No, son. Just in time. Just in time, I pointed to the bed. Matthew! Save Matthew! A military doctor was already with Matthew checking vitals and giving him medicine. He is stable, master, reported the doctor. I sighed relieved. My body turned a rag. I leaned against the wall, watching them take away the dirty cops. Tonight, justice is not just a pretty word. Tonight, justice looks like black rifles pointing at the bad guys. My live video of a few minutes became the spark that burned down the entire criminal empire. In hours, it had millions of views. All of Mexico and the U.S. were shocked. The image of the old father with a knife defending his chained son in the hospital touched the hearts of millions who thirst for justice. The hashtag Justice for Matthew and William. The brave father flooded the networks. Under the brutal pressure of the people and direct orders from the capital, the operation at the Santillan mansion took place at dawn. I was not there, but David showed me the video from the agent's helmet cam. The gate I knocked down last night was still lying there. The feds entered. They found Frank and his wife burning papers in the fireplace. They found Cyclops moaning on the sofa with his leg badly bandaged and a rifle on the side that he planned to use. But the strongest thing was in the garage. When they broke the false concrete floor, they found a secret bunker. Inside were more than 50 bricks of heroin pounds of crystal and an arsenal. The luxurious house, the parties, everything built on blood and poison. And Lauren, I saw her in the video. She did not run, nor did she resist. She was sitting quietly in the kitchen crying. When they took her away, handcuffed, she looked at the camera, eyes swollen empty. Dad, forgive me. Her lips moved even though she knew I was not there. Seeing that I did not feel pleasure, I felt sadness, a deep sadness for how dirty money destroys people. She was a good girl, until greed and cowardice swallowed her conscience. They took Matthew and me to the military hospital in the capital for safety. We lived shielded for a week. They operated on Matthew's leg, put in pins. The doctors said he would walk again, but would limp for life. No problem. Dad smiled. Matthew hitting the cast. Better to walk crooked than walk on my knees before those bastards. I looked at my son. The pride did not fit in my chest. The weak son of the barn had died. In front of me was a real man who crossed hell and returned with a scar of honor. 3 months later, the trial against the Santillans. It was the trial of the century. The room full of press people and activists. The Santillans hired the most expensive lawyers in the country. Fine suits, expensive cologne, trying to make the trial a circus. Your Honor said the lead lawyer, slippery as an eel. My clients are victims of a setup. Matthew is an addict he self-harmed to extort. The drugs were planted. There is no direct evidence linking my clients. He spoke beautifully logically. I saw Matthew gripping the wheelchair, red with anger. Easy, son, I put my hand on his shoulder. The truth is like a needle, and today that needle is going to prick their throats. It was the prosecution's turn. David took the stand. He put the sealed SD card on the table. The one that was in the shoe, Your Honor. This is the irrefutable proof, said David. The big screen turned on. Everyone held their breath. The clear image from the body camera appeared, angle from Matthew's chest. You could clearly see Frank and Cyclops cutting the tires, putting in the white packages. The audio was heard perfectly. If this goes well, we change cars, Dad. Cyclops was heard. Do it right. If Matthew finds out there is trouble, answered Frank. Then Matthew enters the scream and the treacherous blow from behind. The camera spins and goes to black, but the audio keeps recording the blows and Matthew's moans. When it finished, total silence. Nobody moved. The cruelty exposed before the light of justice made even the Fox lawyers hang their heads. Frank sank into the chair, pale. Cyclops lowered his head, trembling. The judge struck the gavel, sounding like a death knell for the empire of evil. Let the witness, William, pass. I stood up, adjusting my old but ironed shirt. I went up looking at those who tortured my son. I do not know much about laws, I said, my voice resonating. I am just a father. I taught my son to sow, to raise cattle, to be straight. I did not teach him to deal with demons, but I taught him something. If you fall, you get up, and if you can't, I carry you. I pointed to Matthew in the chair. They broke his leg, but they did not break his soul, and they are never going to break a father's love. You have money, power, weapons, but we have the truth, and the truth never dies. The whole room stood up to applaud. It thundered like a storm, drowning out the defense's complaints. The sentence fell that day. Frank Santillan, 25 years. Cyclops, 30 years. The wife, 15 years for complicity. Assets confiscated. Justice was served. After the trial, before going to the women's prison, Lauren asked to see Matthew. The police gave 5 minutes in the waiting room guarded. I stayed at the door. Matthew in his chair, calm. Lauren opposite, handcuffed, crying mascara, running. Matthew, forgive me, she sobbed. I was afraid they would kill me, afraid they would kill you. Matthew looked at the woman with whom he shared the bed, the one he swore to love. I know you were afraid, said Matthew softly. I do not blame you for being afraid. Everyone fears dying. So do you forgive me? When I get out, we can. Lauren looked with foolish hope. Matthew shook his head slowly. Lauren, I forgive you. I do not hold a grudge, because a grudge is drinking poison expecting the other to die. I let it go to live in peace. He paused, voice firm. But forgiving is not returning. You stayed watching while they broke my leg. You stayed silent when your dad hit me with the bat. That silence hurt more than the blows. I need a woman who stands by my side in the storm, not one who hides behind the enemy. Matthew turned the chair without looking back. Goodbye, Lauren. I hope you find peace, but not with me. Lauren broke down crying on the table, crying of regret that arrives late. I pushed my son's chair out of the courthouse. The afternoon sun bathed us in gold. The spring wind was already blowing, bringing new life. You did well, son. I patted him. It hurts, Dad. Matthew touched his chest. It hurts more than the leg, I know. But that wound also heals. And when it heals, you will be stronger than ever. 3 months later. Winter passed, but in the mountains it cools down at night. In my old ranch, a big bonfire burned in the patio, red sparks flying to the sky like fireflies. The smell of roast brisket with its spicy rub and oak wood filled the air. Matthew was by the fire with a crutch in one hand, turning the ribs on the grill with the other. He kept his promise. A belated barbecue party, but the tastiest in the world. It is ready, old man. Get the booze, he shouted, face red from the fire and joy. The smile had returned. I took out the aged whiskey. I poured 2 shots. David also came. He drove from the city to be with us. 3 men sitting by the fire under the stars. We toasted. To the return, said David. To justice, continued Matthew. Because we are alive, I said, with a lump in my throat. Bottoms up. The whiskey went down, burning nicely, warming the soul. I saw Matthew eat meat with gusto. I saw his cast and looked at the sky. I remembered that night of terror, the desperation of seeing my son chained, the loneliness against the rotten system. If I had not trusted my gut feeling, if I had backed down out of fear, if I had chosen the safety of an old man instead of danger, now I would be alone in front of my son's photo, eating guilt until I died. I turned, looking at the camera as if speaking to millions of fathers out there. Friend's life is full of traps and wolves in sheep's clothing. They can take your money house, even your name. But there is one thing they can never take from you, and it is the blood that runs through your family. Never ignore the voice of the heart. When the gut feeling tells you that your children are in danger, send fear to the devil. Kick down the doors. Fight like beasts to protect them. Because a man's greatest wealth is not what he has in the bank, but the people sitting around the campfire tonight. I am William, I am a father, and I am proud to be one. I lowered the glass, grabbed the piece of brisket that Matthew gave me. It is delicious, son. Better than a 5-star restaurant. Merry Christmas, Dad. Laughed, Matthew eyes shining. Merry Christmas, son. The fire crackled, illuminating the happy faces of father and son. Tonight the wind is still cold, but our hearts have never been so hot. If this story captivated you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box to the left of the screen. Thanks for watching.